So it's very important that we go out and vote. It's extremely important that we try to do everything we can to talk to people about the importance of this election who are either on the fence or who have no plans on going out and voting already. If they don't have plans to go out and vote, there are some people you can get. I live in the state of Florida, and normally over the last few elections, the state of Florida is worthless for, Democrats. It's like they've been getting blown out for the most part in Florida, and a lot of people are like, well, why would I even go vote, because they're just going to win anyway. And I've heard people say that. But if you look some of the recent polling, Rick Scott, who is a senator here in Florida, and of course, winning the Senate is going to be a huge deal for this particular upcoming election, just like winning the House is, which the Democrats have a good shot of winning. But if you look at the latest poll, Rick Scott, who was up big, is now only up 2 points in his poll. The state of Florida for Joe Biden, he was down 7, 8 points. There was a recent poll that came out where he was only down 4. And in the state of Florida, there are 2 ballot measures that are going to be on the ballot this November. One is abortion, which we all know by now through special elections and other elections that people overwhelmingly are voting for women's rights and for the pro-choice movement. And the other ballot measure is marijuana is going to be on the ballot here, which is going to bring out a lot of people who wouldn't even think about voting. So I am still, if you were to ask me, do you really think that, Biden could win Florida? Do you really think that Rick Scott could lose? I mean, Rick Scott with the new polling, yeah, I mean, he's within the margin of error. So is Joe Biden. If I had to place money on it, or you're putting a gun to my head, I still think, obviously Donald Trump wins Florida. I still think Rick Scott ekes it out. But there is a voting bloc in the state of Florida and really all across the country that may turn this election in a way that was not originally suspected. So in 2020, there was a huge influx of Gen Zers and younger voters that came out to help sort of push Biden a little bit over the edge. I think it was a little overstated how much Gen Z helped, but I think obviously that they were a help. And there is some concern that they may not be on board as much this time around as they were the first time. Of course, what's happening in Palestine is playing a role in it. Joe Biden's age is playing a role in this. And again, it's part of the TikTok and social media that a lot of younger people are seeing way more right-wing content now on social media than they had back in 2020. So it's kind of easy to get them influenced into thinking maybe I made the wrong choice, even though, I mean, Joe Biden's done a lot of great things, and he's done a lot of great things for young people, especially with the student loan debt. Now, of course, not all young people have student loan debt, so it does not affect them. But there is a group that I just saw a new poll that came out is going to be the one that normally you would think are the Donald Trump voters, but President Biden appears to be making serious inroads with America's oldest voters and could become the first Democrat to win the demographic in over 2 decades. This is from Axios, by the way. If current polling pans out, November's election between 2 historically old candidates would upend long-held assumptions about how Americans vote. The Biden campaign is attempting to seal the support of a group that consistently votes at higher rates than any other demographic. Former President Trump, as Axios reported yesterday, appears to be making stunning gains of his own among young voters. So again, this is where you would think that one could cancel the other one out. However, the older voter will vote probably 2 times more than the younger voter. So that's why this is important. The polls could still be wrong, but unlike young voters, older Americans still sometimes answer their phones, making them easier to reliably poll. The most recent New York Times Siena poll showed that Biden has a 9-point lead in a head-to-head matchup against Trump among likely voters aged 65 or older. In a Quinnipiac University poll released last month, Biden is beating Trump by 12 points with the 65 plus set. Now, again, for decades, as the article said, the older voters were voting for the Republican Party. And a lot of the reason for that is because for years, the right-wing propaganda machine was drilling into the heads of their voters, the people who watch Fox News, the people who go out and vote. They were drilling. They were the party of the Constitution. They were the party of freedom. They were the party of patriotism. And as you can see now, what Donald Trump and the 65 plus year old, voter, they took that seriously. And they are seeing now that they are not the party of the Constitution. They are not the party of patriotism, and they are not the party of freedom. This is something that they really said, this is why I'm voting Republican, because they really believed in the Constitution. They really believed in freedom. They really believed in patriotism. But these are people who've been through life, whether they were educated, non-educated, it doesn't matter. They've been through the school of life at this point, and they get to a point where they understand the difference between being bullshitted and, what the actual truth is. And the fact that it is that big in polling right now is a huge, huge deal for Joe Biden, because as I said earlier, I truly do believe that and actually it's not even, I'm saying it as if it's an opinion. It's actually a fact that older voters will vote way more than younger voters will. So even if there is a shift to Trump in the younger voter, and when I say shift, Biden's still going to lead with younger voters. There's no question about it. Biden is still going to win the popular vote. There's absolutely no question about it. Donald Trump has no chance. I was about to say zero. I never like to say zero. He's got less than a 5% chance of winning the popular vote. And 5% is way too high of an odds. But, so as time goes on and the economy starts to straighten out, I think we discussed this many times about the economy. There was a good inflation report that happened the other day, and yes, people are still feeling it, but the stories are starting to come out, stories that we have been saying for a long time. The people who watch this have been saying this for a long time, is that really a lot of these prices at this point is price gouging, and it's overpricing things that corporations have been doing since the pandemic, when they raised their prices and never really brought them back down and kept them because they were making record profits. And now you're starting to see some of these companies, because they're starting to see that people are not shopping as much anymore. So they are going to start lowering these prices, which could help, again, those inflation prices. The biggest issue that we're seeing now, especially here in the state of Florida, is housing prices, insurance costs. Those are still through the roof. And that is something that's really hurting Americans. And unfortunately, they blame Joe Biden for that. And I yet to have somebody come to me and say, what should Joe Biden be doing right now to lower home prices? What should he be doing to lower insurance costs? Again, we've talked about this. There's no magic wand that the president has. I think the question should be the House, which is the most worthless house in the history of this country. I mean, statistically, they have passed almost nothing. Why are people not asking, what is the House doing? They're the ones who are running their mouth about inflation. What bills have they brought to the table to lower inflation? What bills have they brought to the table to stop the immigration that they are so? In fact, the Senate put together a bill and it was blocked by their own Senate, by their own Republicans, because Donald Trump told them, no, we're not doing that because that's my thing. We're going to wait till November. Oh, I thought it was a crisis. Nah, it'll be we can keep it a crisis until November. So, again, that's good news to see that the older, and not that they're just polling ahead. They're polling ahead pretty big, which is a pretty big deal. So again, I think just going out, letting people know why this election is incredibly important and why we have to do everything we can to make sure that Joe Biden wins again, that we can control the House, we can control the Senate, and then maybe we could start implementing some laws that will end this nonsense, that will end this ridiculousness. Now, unfortunately, with a Supreme Court that we have right now, that's going to be a little bit difficult. But if you're asking me, if Joe Biden wins with a House and a Senate that can actually get this through to stack the court, I am 100% for it, because we all know that Obama got screwed with his pick. The fact that it still drives me nuts to this day that Hillary Clinton lost because we had some baby ass Bernie Sanders voters saying, I'm not going out and voting for Hillary. And because their vote obviously would have made a difference. Plus, there's numerous things that happened during that whole election that, no sense in reliving it, other than the fact because Hillary did not win, we have the Supreme Court that we have now. So, it's extremely, extremely important. And I know people keep saying, well, I keep hearing every year, every election, this is the most important one. This one, it just really is. Go look at Project 2025. Look and see what the new administration, when they come in, and we've talked about it on this show, and you can YouTube Project 2025. There are hundreds of great people explaining, people who have been in politics, who have reported on politics, who have been around the systems for decades, who understand how dangerous this is. And, I would suspect that even the people who vote for Donald Trump, who don't understand what Project 2025 is, I suspect that they're going to be pretty shocked too. And there's going to be a lot of it that they're not going to like.